Totally.
Oh, God. All right, well, we'll start. Is it on? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on. So, thanks everyone for coming. I'm Mary Akub-Rod. I'm here stepping in for Jill McNamee. She's on vacation, so she apologizes. We're here with Melissa Weigele from Coldwell Banker, and we're just going to have a conversation about real estate and talk about what Melissa does to be so awesome in this industry. So I guess the very first thing is you want to talk to us about how you got into real estate in the first place?
Sure, yeah. So I started off initially when I graduated high school. I actually went to get my real estate license, and I actually decided as soon as I got my license that I didn't want it. So I decided I didn't want it. I decided that I wanted to do something different, and so I got into working for the airlines, and so I did operations for a really long time for Sun Country Airlines until Tom Petters went to prison, and so and
That's not good.
we all kind of weren't getting paid, so we basically lost our jobs, and so I decided, I'm gonna take a break and kind of figure things out, and started a family, and then kind of said, hey, I want to do something. What should I do? And my husband's like, well, why wouldn't you get back into real estate? That's what you initially were going to do. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I've had so many bad experiences
Really?
with different agents when we've bought and sold our house and things like that. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. That's just not me. That's not me. And he's like, you don't have to be what we've experienced. So he's like, you don't have to be that. And so he's like, just be something different. And so I'm like, okay. All right, fine. So I started off initially and said, okay, I'll get my license and do a few transactions, and said, I'll do, sell 5 houses, 10 houses a year and be satisfied. Well, I think my first year I sold like 35 houses.
Yeah.
And then kind of got the itch and said, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this. And so my husband's like, okay, well, how far are we gonna go with this? And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure yet. And so I still haven't given him that answer, but.
How many years now have you been in it?
10 now.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, so it'll be 10 years now coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm still just doing exactly, kind of what I have been every year, and trying to keep it consistent obviously, like, as I've gotten more and more deals done, there's always a limit, and I feel like if I go too much higher than that limit, I'm gonna drive myself crazy. So that's kind of where I started.
You have admin support though. Yeah.
I have now I only have a part-time admin. So I had a full-time admin for the last 2 years, and then during, when everything kind of was unsure, she decided to step down to part-time when we weren't sure what was going to happen for this year. And I said, okay, November and December was kind of slow, and I said, I think I can do more stuff, and that's fine. And so she dropped down to part-time. So now I just have a part-time admin. I was at 2 for a while, and that was just too much.
That's too much, yeah.
It's too much. It was too much.
Yeah, too much in cost, or too much just having to deal with those personalities?
I think that was the latter. The latter is just, I think that was the biggest thing, is just dealing with a lot more people. And I feel like I'm pretty self-sufficient, and I feel like I don't know if it's just I like to make sure that things are done a proper way, in the certain way that I like them to. And I think it was just easier to cut down to 1 and so forth, so.
That I find interesting. I'm kind of skipping around, but you said this. Whenever I've done a transaction with you, you've always been very well organized. Like,
Yeah,
you can just see it.
Very organized.
And you're always the one responding, usually. Yep. And so I always wondered, agents that I see if I didn't have my admin, I think I don't know where I'd be. So knowing that you do a large amount of transactions every year. How many did you do last year?
I think I did 99 last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without
99.
a team.
Yeah, without a team.
So what do you do? What systems do you have in place to keep your guys organized?
I am a crazy spreadsheet person. I do a lot of spreadsheets, a ton of spreadsheets. I'm kind of a crazy person when it comes to spreadsheets. I like to be organized. I like to make sure that I have everything. Everything from making sure that everything is accessible at all times. So I'm making sure, like, I use everything online. I use Dropbox for business, things like that. Making sure, like, I can easily access anything I need from my phone, from my computer, from my iPad, anytime, anything. Anybody has a question, I can easily just pop it up and be able to answer the question right there, because I think it's really important to be able to look at something and using like my numbers tabs. Like I'm an Apple person, so I know some people aren't, but I use like my Apple stuff so I can have it connect to every single device that I have and things. So I always have availability to see it easily. So then I can answer questions.
Sure.
And so then I don't have to say, hey, call my assistant or call, whatever to get this information. I'm able to just know what it is. And I'm really, really big, and you know this, like I'm really big on answering questions. Like my clients, when you're hiring me, you're not hiring my assistant. So like that's one of my biggest pet peeves is there's so many times where I, as an agent too, are like being told to talk to somebody's assistant. And I'm like, you're the one that you know what's going on in the transaction. Your assistant knows very little, so it's like I want to conversate with that agent, and just the same as my clients, I want my clients to be able to get a hold of me and talk to me. And I always tell them, I'm like, if you ever have a question, I am available all the time. You always call me. If I don't answer, I will call you back. If it is something that is super important that you need something and it's an administrative question, there's always the ability to press 0 on my voicemail and you can get my assistant. If not, I will call you back as soon as I'm out of my appointment.
Yeah.
And so usually you will see me like, as I leave an appointment, I'll pull out of someone's driveway and I'll park somewhere and I'm going through and quickly calling people back and shooting emails back, things like that. I'm more of a phone call person. I like to call really quick instead of, I kind of hate texting. Yeah. But I like to be able to just connect with people on a human level and be able to get back to them as soon as possible.
Yeah. I agree with you on the talking to the admin versus the agent.
Yes.
So I'm the same way. I think it's important. Okay, so when you first started your career, you obviously did an extreme 36 transactions in your first year. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So were there obstacles you overcame right away, or was it just natural for you, or? Well,
so it was interesting. And when I started my office, I was one of the only females in my office. Literally one of the only females, and I was literally the youngest. So it was kind of like, it was a boys' club. It really was. And it was, I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest obstacle for me was that I was treated like a child when I kind of came into the office. And I was treated like I was just, like a young woman. And it was kind of interesting to me. And that actually felt like drove me to go, I'm going to show you, right? And that kind of thing. And so I did. And I would say that was literally my biggest obstacle. But when I started, it was all about just kind of grinding, just going, what can I do to kind of get my name out there? And one of the biggest compliments I think I've ever gotten was when I was almost about 2 years in, and an agent out of River Falls, who has been an agent for a really long time, he said to me, he goes, where did you come from? And he goes, literally 1 minute, I had no idea who you were, and next, your name was everywhere. And he's like, how did you do that? And I was like, I literally just made sure my name was like everywhere. I did open houses like crazy, handed out my cards to every single person that came through there. I want to make sure I would do social media stuff. I was making phone calls. I was doing that, just kind of grinding as much as I possibly could, like that first 2 years. And just wanted to make sure like my name was out there, And of course, not everybody, I feel like, obviously not everybody can do that because it costs money. It costs money to do it. So and I'm a real true believer in if you want to make money, you're going to have to spend it. Because you're going to have to make a risk and go, hey, if I want to get it out there, I got to get it out there. But there's so many other things that you could do too. To really do it, and making sure like I was putting out there, making sure you have all of your Realtor.com and your Zillow and your profiles and everything done, which is amazing to me how many people don't have them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's interesting to see what's out there, what other people have in their bios and everything. Like they haven't been updated in 5 years. And
yep.
So
I can't talk. My picture hasn't been updated in like 5 years.
I don't think I've ever seen you in blonde hair, so we're gonna have that.
I just don't want
later.
a new picture.
Yeah.
I've been removing my picture from everything, so my picture's not on a lot of stuff. But that's the one thing that I'm like, I update everything but that.
Yeah. Well, it's a good disguise then, because
it is.
You look different with the blonde hair, and I've always seen you in darker hair, so that's funny. So then you have mega deals going on, major appointments, you have a part-time assistant, so how are you tracking your goals? How are you setting them? What do you set a new goal for yourself every year? Do you have a consistent goal? Like, what do you do to have your goals? What goals do you set for yourself?
So I'm like the person that is the worst with this is I never set goals. I do not set a goal. And the reason why I think I don't set a goal is because of the fact that I feel like setting a goal initially, because when I started, that was always a big thing, is put a goal down on paper. And every time that I thought about it, it gave me anxiety. Like I literally felt anxious about doing it, and it made me I think it actually made me kind of go backwards. And so I always said, I'm not gonna set a goal for myself. All I'm gonna do is make sure that I'm doing exactly what I know I need to do to get what I need, provide for my family, provide for my business, do what I need to do. And at the end of the year, it is what it is. And so it was kind of funny because I didn't even know what my transactions were until Jill asked me. And it was like, I do not look to see like what I did year after year and things. I know what I did my first year because it was such a big deal, and I was like, it was my first year. But ever then I like try to stop looking. I try not to look. Like I try not to literally look throughout the year. And so I think it was, for me, it was helpful not to set those goals because I think it would put more pressure on me than anything.
So how do you challenge yourself to do better?
I just know that every single time, like for me, it's the fact that I had such a bad experience when I wasn't an agent with agents that I literally just go, be better than that, be better than that, be better than that. And then I stay consistent and I know, like, I have an idea of if I'm doing well enough, if I can always feel it. And my husband says the same thing. The same time every single year at the beginning of the year, I always say, oh my God, it's so slow. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And he's like, give it 2 weeks, like you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then it does. And every single year it does the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's my kind of internal battle, I think, that kind of keeps me
every agent has
going.
that.
Yes, that internal battle, like I gotta do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That slow in January is, I say we're on a freeze.
It's brutal.
We're on a freeze, and the kids say we're always on a freeze in January.
It's brutal.
January's freeze.
You say it every year too, don't you? And
Oh,
it's like,
sure.
oh, last year wasn't like this. And my husband also says for me, yes, it was. It was. You said it last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then, what do you do then for lead generation?
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like? Do you set aside times for that, or do you?
So I do, like, now that I'm kind of, now that I've been doing it for a long period of time now, a lot of my stuff, obviously a lot of my business is coming from referral business and that kind of thing too. I do new construction and I do my previously owned, and so I have a good basis coming from both ends, which is really, really nice. But I always do, I still do make sure that lead generation wise, I think the best thing for lead generation, and I was doing Zillow for a really long time, and I mean, it's fine, it is what it is, but it's a lot of money for not a lot of what you're gonna get. So, I mean, did that for a long time, but honestly, I think the best lead generation that you can do is making sure that you have all your profiles set up, because I get calls off of those profiles all the time. I get more calls off of that than I was getting from lead gen, like paying for leads. Honestly, is making sure that those are on there, and then adding your sales in there so you can show your experience and keep adding and adding and adding. So, and making sure that things are updated, because otherwise I think that there's a million of us. So if you look up an agent, it's gonna show you who's active, who's the most active on there. And so I think that's the best thing for lead generation, and that's what I've done, is making sure my profiles are always updated.
Except your picture.
Yes, except for the picture portion. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. I will one day. I will. You know what? I've had like I've had headshots done like twice since then, and I was like, nope, I don't know. I'm okay. I don't want to change it.
It's all right.
It's terrible.
It's all right.
It's terrible.
So I know you work with a lot of builders. So that's definitely one of your top sources of your business. And you just said referrals.
Yep.
Is there another source out there? Do you have three? Or you just kind of those builders?
So I do
builders?
a lot of stuff with new construction, which was really big. And I mean, for years I wasn't involved in new construction. I have been now for the past five years or so. I've been doing a lot of new construction and kind of doing that. I mean, and that was the biggest thing too, was not being afraid of bringing my clients to new construction properties and showing them, I think, was a huge a boost for that. And then, yeah, my referral business from a lot of the people that, that I've worked with before, and making sure that, I would say that's my biggest one, is just making sure, hey, showing the experience that they have, and, asking them too, hey, if you guys, thank you. If you have somebody else that's looking, like, please let me know. Just making sure that it's out there and asking for those referrals, I think is the biggest.
So you have a database then of your
Yep,
past clients?
I do. Yep. So I have a database. So I actually use 2 CRMs because I haven't found one that's together is fantastic. Could be really rich if someone came up with a good CRM.
We did.
That's,
Keller Williams.
yeah,
Same.
sure, I'm sure.
It's the truth.
Right? I'm so picky about my CRM. So I use 2 of them. Weirdly enough, I use 2 of them for my emails because I like the emails to come out a certain way. I like the looks of them. And then I use another one to kind of keep track of everything and just keep track of because it keeps track of all my deals and everything else. So I do use 2 CRMs, but again, like, my spreadsheets that I've made are probably my biggest, honestly, the most helpful. Like, I literally had to create them to what works for me, because not every CRM is going to work for every single person.
Right.
And there's so many things, some of them I think have too much.
Yeah.
Too much, too many features that, what are you going to use those for? Unless you're going to sit on your CRM all day long, what are you going to, it's just too much.
Well, I agree, it's annoying to have 6 tabs up at one time on your computer, which is why, it's nice to have all-encompassing CRM.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes it gets overwhelming. You find yourself answering the questions of the CRM and not actually doing work. Yeah, I can see that too. So when you communicate with them and all that, what do you do to communicate with your past clients?
I do emails, so I don't overwhelm them either. So I do not send out the email that I get. I mean, how many people get a lender email? You know what I mean? Get a lender email and they get 5 of the same email from 5 different lenders.
Yeah.
That is the tackiest thing I think that there is I'm getting all these different lenders sending me the exact same email on every 4th of July and every other thing. I do not do that. I don't send those out. I send out literally a monthly, hey, just checking in email. And honestly, it's very just easy. And if they respond, they respond. If they don't, they don't. And so I try not to make it for my ones that are currently looking, or I know they're going to be looking, I send out something different. Just, making sure that they're set up on, hey, do you want me to make any changes to your, search criteria, things like that, and just kind of checking in. But then I do my auto emails, just asking, hey, how's everything going? Any questions? What do you need? Anything going on? Anything new? And if they respond, they respond. Yeah. If they don't, they don't. And then I send out yearly things to each of my clients. So I do a big yearly thing, and send all my clients a little treat every single year, and then also do just a letter here and there, trying to trust them a couple times a year.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest limited belief is we send out an email and they block you.
Right.
And then you can't reach them again, right?
Right.
So how many, does that happen to you often though, or are people pretty receptive?
People are pretty good about it. I've only had I only get one every so often. Sometimes, honestly, there's been a few of them where I've gotten them and I've actually reached out and been like, hey, and they didn't even realize I did it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're oh, by the way, and then all of a sudden they have some other friend that wants to buy or sell, so it's kind of nice. And then it's just I think, honestly, that's one of the best times to reach out, is all of a sudden you get someone that unsubscribes.
Yeah.
And that person, call them.
Right.
Ask them, what's up? Because half the time, I feel like they don't even realize I did it.
That's a good point. Usually I'm just what the heck?
Right? Call them, ask them, text them, whatever, ask them what's up.
No different than if you don't get a listing, right? You want to know why.
I just had one last week, and I literally called her, and then she goes, hey, can you list my lot? And I said, yeah, absolutely. She's like, I didn't even realize I did that. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And I was like, no. And then she's like, hey, by the way, I was actually going to call you. So it's easy. It's, it's a way just to reach out. Another reason.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So for new agents out there, we have a few I know in here I can see. What advice would you give them?
I would say, honestly, the best thing to do is going to be, if you're doing a transaction and you need help, ask for help. Ask for help. Ask the agent who you're working with for help, or ask somebody that you trust in your office. Ask for help. That is like, it's such a relief to me when an agent says to me, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I might need a little bit of guidance through this. And I'm like, no problem. Absolutely. Not a problem. It's when all of a sudden they don't tell me and then things start going awry and then they try to cover up for the fact that they didn't know what they were doing in the first place. And I'm like, just ask. Like, ask for help. I'm so willing to help and make sure that, because the goal is the same goal. So everybody has the same exact goal.
Get to the closing table.
Let's get to the closing table.
Yeah.
Your buyer has the same goal as my seller and vice versa. So let's make sure like we can do it. It doesn't always have to be this all the time, and it can be so easy. So just ask for help and just keep grinding. Like, you have to just keep grinding. You have to try to get your name out there. Do open houses. Like, I can't even tell people so many times, do an open house. Even if you don't like to, it doesn't matter. Do them. Like, do them, because one person getting your name out to one person is one more person that now knows your name that didn't know it yesterday. So, I mean, if you don't do it, you're never going to get your name out there. So do them. If someone has one in your office, ask. Just do it.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's free to do.
Right? Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah, that you realize how much of a lead towards open houses can be when you're not doing them, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the houses were selling so quickly, but so no one ever had an open house.
Right.
And then you find yourself trying to find clients because you don't have people coming through open houses.
Yep.
So
You got to do them. It's
Yeah.
crazy how many people in the last 2 years have been coming through open houses. And it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, I've got numerous deals off of people coming through open houses. So an agent who tells you that an open house does not work is just because they don't want to do the open house. They just don't want to waste their weekend. I think it's really important to do them.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so then you're just doing open houses, people are going through. How have you been winning in the market then? Like, there's very little homes on the market, right?
Mhm.
So if you get a listing appointment, you're hoping that you're the only one they're interviewing, right? You're like, God, please don't have enough.
And everybody this year, I swear to God, I think we were talking about this before. I'm like, I have never been up against so many people in listing appointments this year this is the biggest out of any other year.
Yeah, I lost one to you like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And we gave him the same price.
Yes,
so
we did.
I don't know what it was. So.
Yes, we did. And that's the thing is like, it could be, and you will see, and you'll see it, you know, and sometimes it'll be like 3 or 4 different agents and every single person has a different price. So, I mean, it was just another one that I just did and that I got the listing for that they interviewed 4 agents and I was not the highest. I wasn't the lowest. I was kind of like that mid-range. And honestly, I think the biggest thing was, and I mean, 2 of the people that I had listed for this year told me it was just because of my honesty.
Yeah.
It was my honesty is that I was just like, hey, here's the deal. Here's what the market is. Here's what I think your price is. And this is how I got to it. And this is why I think it's important. I'm not, and I just was very honest with, I'm not going to tell you a number to make you feel warm and fuzzy. Like, because that's not going to do anything for anybody.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's going to hurt us. And I think that was the biggest thing is just being honest with people. And you know me, and I'm a huge believer and I don't drop my commission.
Right.
I don't. My commission is my commission, and that is what it is. If you can't negotiate for your own commission, how are you expected to negotiate for that seller? So, and I'm very honest and open with that about the people, and I tell them exactly what they're going to get for that money. And I also make sure that they understand they're going to be talking to me.
Yeah.
It's me that they're going to be talking to. It's not going to be my assistant. It's me.
Yeah. Do you ever go above 6%?
I have, yeah.
Have you gotten it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've gotten 7. I think the highest I've ever gotten was 7%. That's about the cap is where I'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great if you get a 7%, right? You're like, oh my gosh.
Right. I did a commercial one for 8.
Well,
So I did a commercial one for 8, but for residential, the only thing is 7 was the highest I've done.
That's impressive that you even got commercial for 8.
Yeah.
Because they don't like to pay anyone.
No, they don't like paying it.
They'll just cut you out of the deal.
Right. Exactly. You'll do a year's worth of work for
Yeah,
nothing.
and they'll cut you out. This guy came by and he said he wanted it, so we just had our lawyers do it.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
It's happened.
Okay, so tell us something. I mean, you've talked a lot about what you do, so I feel like I'm looking at these kind of pre-planned questions, and they're kind of sometimes they're overlapping, but if you had to really think about what you do really, really good, you obviously a lot of spreadsheets and stuff like that, and the marketing sounds, but just in general, like what your one thing that you are consistent with, and will not let it, sway on any day.
Mhm.
Do you have that?
I'd say it's just my bluntness. I have no filter. That's very clear. Most people that have worked with me know that I have no filter whatsoever. I think that's honestly the consistently important thing that I do is I'm just very consistent about, hey, like this is how it is, this is what it's gonna be, and this is, if you don't like it, I guess I'm not for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because I think people, especially more now in this day and age than they did, years ago, I think it's really important for people to understand that, that I'm here and I have a backbone and I'm gonna stick up for what I think is how it should be and how it's right. And if that's not the case, it's not the case. So I mean, if that's not somebody that wants to work with you, it's not somebody that wants to work with you. But I'm very consistent about, hey, this is how I do my business. This is how I'm gonna keep going with it. And that's that. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing, other than that, is more my organizational stuff.
Yeah.
Is I'm really, really particular about how my forms are filled out, my contracts are, and I've liked the fact that when an agent compliments me that, hey, this is a really well written offer and everything's filled in and I don't have to go back to do things.
How often do you train during the year?
Myself?
Yeah. Besides CE.
Which
I don't really.
Hey, I do have a couple designations. So I do a couple of those to do extra little things. But I feel like, to be honest, I feel like every day, I feel like I'm learning something new. And I think that's one of the biggest things I really like about this business is that I am always learning. And there's always something changing. And so I always want to know what's going on with it and why the changes. So I read all the WRA emails, all the legal stuff that comes out. I read all of that. So I feel like kind of like every day I'm training on something, but class, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Coldwell Banker has.
We have a
training,
ton. I mean, there's a ton of
even
stuff that is
away big trainings.
Yeah, where they do a lot of that stuff. I mean, I wish I should participate more, to be honest. But in those, and I used to a lot, and now I don't get as many opportunities to do it just because I'm busy.
When you have a family.
Yeah, and I have 2 kids, so my 2 kids are, I have a 10 and a 12-year-old, and one's a ballet dancer and one's a hockey player.
Don't forget. Well,
I don't have a life. We did do lacrosse last year, and we said no lacrosse this year.
Yeah.
So I could say, yeah, it's a busy time. We don't have much of a life outside of working and running children. I'm like a underpaid chauffeur.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So a lot of people I know have always wanted to get in with builders. They don't know how to get in with builders. How did you get in? Because do you work with multiple builders or just the one?
2.
You do work with 2. So how did you manage to get in with the builders? Did you know them as were they
Nope.
friends? It was.
Nope, I actually didn't know them at all at the beginning. The biggest thing I did was I wasn't afraid to show their houses. So there's a lot of agents and knowing, now doing new construction for so long, there's so many agents that are really scared when they see under construction spec home. They see that on there, they get really nervous.
That's shocking to me.
They're really nervous.
I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought the opposite. We don't need an inspection. We don't have to worry about that falling apart.
Right. There's a lot that get really scared by it, and I think that's, and I think that's one of the biggest things. But I wasn't scared to show their houses and call and ask questions, and and the biggest thing is I did do a training. I did do a training actually with Coldwell. We have. So Rob File is one of his literally was a new construction guru at Coldwell, and he's one of our BVPs at I think our Egan office now. But he was a new construction guru, and he did a class on new construction, and it was a week-long class, and I was like, yep, I'm doing this. And so I did it, and I learned all this different stuff about what the difference is, in the types of windows and how things are, what our values are important in code and things like that, and just different things about construction that, most people I don't think really know. And it was really, really eye-opening, and I learned a ton from it. And that's when I kind of started pushing more and more, bringing more people to new construction and doing that, and then having a conversation with, you know, the builders and bringing them in and going, hey, oh, you're, you know, looking for a house, but you can't find something, let's go talk to them, and scheduling an appointment and doing that. And I mean, at the time, I think it was very good timing as well.
Sure.
For, you know, for me getting in with the builders I'm with, just because of, you know, they were kind of not really represented, like a little bit, but not too much. And it was me going in, and then after that, now for what I've done now in comparison to what it was 5 years ago, is now I've literally created basically all the systems in place that we use now, all the day-to-day that every one of the subcontractors use. I created everything, all the programs, all the sharing programs, everything to kind of keep everything straight. I created that all for the builder, and it was it's very helpful. It's super helpful, because it was before, it was like pen and paper, you know, it was pen and paper and that, and I was like, that's great and all, but you know,
builders don't have that part of it. They can
right,
build anything, but they can't use a computer, you know, like.
They don't have the time. They're not, people think that the builder's like sitting in the office all the time.
No, yeah.
No, not the ones that I work with, they don't sit in the office. They're usually hands-on, they're out there, they're doing stuff, they're at jobs. So that's why too, like, you know, agents still like blow up their phones, and he's just like, oh my gosh, like I'm busy, like I'm trying to do stuff, you know, I kind of came in and was that helpful person where I was like, hey, let me take the phone calls, I'll get all this, I'll do whatever you need to do, let me know what you need, and kind of just created it from there, created off the need.
I'm sure when you started though, you felt like a fish out of water doing construction.
100%.
Yeah.
I have learned so much from those guys, and it's honestly I think it's helped me so much in even doing my previously owned stuff, is because now I've worked with all these guys for so long, and I'm one female working with all of these men, and I've learned so much, and they all are so willing and helpful and show me and tell me and explain to me things, and I'm kind of like one of those people that I'm like a sponge, that I want to learn, that I'm always excited to learn something. I want to know, like, why? Tell me why and what. I'm like, I don't know if I'm being annoying, but I want to know, and they're so helpful with like, here, let me show you.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's been really helpful, and it helps at a different level with my business, because it helps spill over into previously owned.
Sure, you know what you're looking at.
Right, because I can go into a house that I can tell problems right off the bat.
Right.
And so I can, you know, and I am able to kind of, like, this is what we're gonna need to do, you know, inspection wise, things like that, to kind of bring it to a whole different level.
Well, you're very knowledgeable of the homes the builders you represent too. That's one thing I always noticed too when we worked together, is that I would ask you a question and you would just answer. And I'm like, I probably would have had to go say, let me check and call you back, because it's like, and I know, you say you keep everything on your phone with you and everything, but you're not taking time to search there. You're answering.
No, I have a weird memory. Yeah. It's weird. If you ask me like memories, like what did you do with this date, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. But I have like random weird knowledge that I keep in my head of like, how much is the price of concrete right now? And I'm like, oh, flat work's gonna be $8 a square foot, you know, and I'm like, bumping it out, and I'm just doing all this stuff and just being able to pull it out. And it's just, I think I just have a really weird memory. That's not normal. It's not a normal thing. My husband tells me all the time, he's like, you're not normal. I'm like, I know. It's a problem.
Did you grow up around here, or
I actually grew up in Centerville. Not New Centerville, as some would think. I grew up in Centerville, so I grew up by Forest Lake.
Okay, yeah.
But then I came over here and went when I was in college, and literally stayed around this area for the rest of, from there on. So my husband grew up in Afton, so we didn't stray far after that.
Yeah.
And then we lived in River Falls for 7 years, and then moved to Afton so we could be closer to his parents, and so I think we're here for good.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's good. I was just thinking, like, when you start real estate, and I'm kind of jumping back and forth a little bit with things that a lot of people, they'll start and they don't have an SOI, they don't know people.
Right, and that was the hardest thing.
Which is where open houses play a role, right? You start to get to know people, and if you live around here for a while, you've grown up, we have a lot of agents out there that are Hudsonites from birth, and okay, well, you got enough working with you there that are, but at Coldwell Banker, but it's like, okay, I'm going up against the locals.
Right, and 10 years ago, in 10 years ago in River Falls, that was like a tight knit group.
Yeah.
Like that was hard. That was a hard kind of place to be because of the fact, especially if you were new, and that was like one of the hardest things is it was a few agents that did everything, and you didn't, it was like, don't want to step on toes kind of thing, and it was hard breaking in there, and that was like why it was so nice when that particular agent said to me, he's like, where did you come from? And he's like, this is so crazy, because he was one of those that that's his area, and you kind of you didn't go into there. And so that was hard. That was probably one of the hardest things. And that was one of my most worrisome things too, is I'm like, I don't know anybody. Like, I don't know any of these people. And I'm learning and I'm growing and honestly helping, with your kids getting into school. And then you start getting to know some of those parents and things like that. That's super helpful.
I always say sports are golden.
Oh gosh,
School sports, they're golden.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
We've got about 20 minutes left. Is there any questions people have for Melissa? Angie?
So you said a couple times you had bad experiences like with some of your other agents.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things that like they did that you try not to do or try to like avoid that you didn't like?
Well, one of the biggest things was the communication. Like that was one of the hardest things I thought as a consumer was I couldn't get a hold of my agent, like ever. And I felt like, okay, we hired you, we're paying you a lot of money, and at that time we were selling our house. I mean, we had a brand new baby. We're married a year, just having a brand new baby, and we were like, okay, we want to move, but I mean, I can't even get a hold of you, and we're paying you a lot of money. I mean, coming up with earnest money to buy our next house was a hard thing to do. So, you look at that in comparison and you're like, wow, I can't even get a hold of this person. I think that was one of the biggest things for us. And it was more or less the fact too, is that nothing was happening and nobody was telling us why. So like our house, for instance, the first time we put it on the market, and of course it was not a great market at that point. But it was like, nobody was letting us know. We were clueless to the market. And yet nobody was telling us why our house wasn't selling. Why weren't we getting showings? Was, I think, one of the hardest things for us. And then we then we went to a different agent a year later, and it was similar experience. And that was the hard part. And it was a very similar thing. And I was like, gosh, is this like all the time? Like, it felt like this was like the trend. Like, this must be it. And then honestly, I will tell you that when we went and we finally sold our house, we hired Abby Dean and Terry Bryan, and Terry's retired now. And we hired Abby Dean, and Abby was like a breath of fresh air, and she was amazing and so like just gentle. And she was like, what questions do you have? And always was just like, let me know any questions, and super easy to get a hold of. And she's honestly what made me go, okay, I can do that. I can do that. Like, I can't do the other stuff, but I can do that. And so, right, that was the hardest part, is not getting a hold of anybody. And I think today, that is one of the biggest things I hear from clients too, is that why they didn't go with their agent that they bought with last time, or things like that, is they're like, I never could get a hold of them. Or I hired this agent, and then all of a sudden it was only their assistants or their buyer's agents or somebody else that they talked to. And it was never them. And that's, I think it's still the biggest complaint.
Well, I say communication is the number one thing, people are looking for in the real estate, right? From their agent. I think it's just as equally as annoying if I have an agent on the other side of a deal where they don't pick up their phone or respond to their texts. And I see their offer come in, and it's the offer I know that they're going to take, and I'm like, oh God, here we go, again. And
right.
Just hope, I feel like your number one job as an agent, right, is to maybe, well, not your number one job as an agent, but when you're dealing with your client, pick up the phone. Yes,
talk, communicate, I think is huge. That was, I think that's, it's hands down the biggest thing. And and I even say all the time too, I'm like, and I'm not the greatest at communication. Like, I'm good at communication, but of course there's times too where I literally have to stop and take a break and stand back and take a look at myself and go, you're not doing what you should be doing right now, and you need to reorganize here and start over. Because, and making sure, like, I'm the worst with going, like, you know, when I have, you know, so many clients, and I'm like, okay, you got to make those weekly phone calls. You have to. Even if you don't want to, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like pulling teeth and you know, like, you know, you have a seller that wants to listed their house way higher than you suggested and is sitting and they want to know why. And I don't know, because you wanted to list too high, but you can't keep, you know, you tell them that every single week. Like it's the hard part. So you got to just do the phone calls. You got to talk to them.
How often are you in your office? Do you work
I
always
work
out of
a
your
lot
office?
out of my office. I actually work better out of my office. Some people work better from home. I'm in my office a
Yeah.
lot. Except for the summer. Summer is really hard because my kids are crazy.
Yeah, I think it's important you ought to be in your office for just
I think you're more
productivity.
focused.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're more focused and you do, and it creates a sense like, hey, I'm at work. You're at work. So it makes you work. I think it makes you work harder.
Yeah.
I can definitely get more done. I can get a lot more done than I can at home. It'll take me 2 days to get the same thing I can do 2 hours in.
For sure.
Yes.
Any other questions out there? You're kidding me. You got a wealth of knowledge right here. I'm just saying, like, come on. Thanks. Now I got to think of a question. Thanks. Go ahead, April.
What's something that you wish you knew then that you know now?
Oh, everything. Like, literally. I feel like I was like a fish out of water when I started. I was so scared. Like, honestly, I was so scared, and it took a lot for me to come, like, you know, like, I am not a person that likes, I do not like attention, like, at all. Like, it actually makes me very uncomfortable.
45 minutes of convincing you to do this interview was on the phone.
But I was like, and it was hard because it's like, for me, even like doing like phone calls and stuff when I first started, I literally thought that people were gonna like answer the phone and like scream at me and like I was gonna like cry. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen. And it didn't happen. And it was just, you know, overthinking it all. There's so many things that I wish that I knew then that I do now, and I'm like, oh, I could have just killed it then. But, you know, I think it's also good to just continuously climb and learn, because otherwise I probably would have been crazy. But I think that is one of the biggest things is just jumping in and doing it. Just jumping in.
Yeah, having a negative client is not good. I think if there's one agent in here, maybe the guys that said they haven't cried because of a client, I'm gonna call you out as a liar unless you've just started.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a guarantee that
There's mean people out there.
there's mean people out there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, especially if you're new too, you'll kind of learn over the years. Like there's people are interesting, and it's, you know, I've had everything. I've had a stalker. I've had a guy that threatened to kill me. I've had all sorts of craziness, and the general public is just, it's an interesting world that we work in, and it's, yeah, you'll learn.
I know you don't like attention, but do you teach classes or whatever desire to teach classes or?
I've thought about it. I have not done it. Like I have done some like, she's laughing because we do like a Wisconsin chat thing. And I get asked to pop in there and jump in and give my 2 cents. So once in a while we'll do that. Like that's about as far as I'll go. And I've done a couple panels and stuff like that that we've done for like Coldwell Banker National and stuff like that. But I've thought about it, but I haven't gotten that far.
It's a growth thing, you know.
It's a growth thing.
Yeah. You can do it.
It's baby steps.
I have faith in you.
It's baby steps.
Matt?
So you talked a lot about open houses.
Yeah.
What do you do to prep for them, and then what do you do for follow-up after they're done?
So I honestly am really big on, I do not do sign-in sheets. I hate sign-in sheets. I know a lot of people do, that they do the sign-in sheets, and some people, they work really well. I'm like the least pushy person on the planet. Like I do not like pushing people. I make sure, like I always try to get a rapport with people as soon as they walk in the door. I think that every single person that's good at sales can literally relate to anybody. Mm-hmm. Like literally relate to anybody. I can relate to a popsicle stick. And I've always had that gift, which was really because I don't feel like you can teach it.
I call it a chameleon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can literally relate to somebody and really try to gain a conversation. And I always am like, here's my card, and making sure that they have the ability to call me. And I will say that is something I changed over the last 5 years in comparison that from when I started. Because when I started, I would do like the sign-in sheet and then I would call them and follow up, and people didn't like it. And they felt it was pushy, and I agreed. I felt like it was kind of pushy. And so I stopped doing that, and